literacy program with the Village in Oakland. We're a grassroots organization that provides advocacy services and support to Oakland's unhoused residents. And we want to do some media literacy because as this became like such a big issue, all these news people were coming out to talk to folks, and folks didn't know how to control the narrative with the media. So we started doing literacy training so people could understand how the media industry works and how they could control the narrative when somebody came to talk to them, so they wouldn't give like 20-minute interviews and then 2 seconds of that interview gets used to like paint a picture that had nothing to do with the person was saying. And then that moved into us creating an online blog on our website where people could write stories. We got funding so people who were unhoused could write written pieces and get paid $25 a piece. And then that moved into us training people to use their cameras as a form of taking the news and paying people to do that. And one of the things we wanted to do, specifically Tracy Lee, who is part of our group, our crew here, and she ain't here today, but her vision was to always have a podcast. And so this is a manifestation of what she wanted to do, and hopefully she'll be with us next week.
She's here in spirit.
She's always here in spirit. Yes. So that's what we're doing. And we thought maybe we kick it off just to start this off that me and Aigwe can talk a little bit about why we do what we do and how we got into what we do.
You know, who we are and
Yep.
just the lifestyle.
For real. Why don't you kick it off?
You know, it's interesting, this word homeless. And just the word itself to me is um, degrading.
For real.
You know, so I like unhoused or, you know, things like that,
Curbside community.
right?
Curbside dweller.
And it's the village. We always are outside with our shacks or, you know, makeshift. You build your house in the forest or whatever, you know? So it's like, yeah, we got to get the terminology right so that we can change the paradigm of how we treat people.
For real.
Because really, Earth is our home. We always migrating. We always find a new place, and you know, um, we need to just learn how to live on the planet and live with each other, and not have these different classes and these different categories that these facades, you know, and illusions of lifestyles. When in actuality, it's really just hating, hating on somebody.
Right.
And then it's also, I think about just like in a village, there's gonna be people that may not be a part of keeping the infrastructure, building a new house for the new married couple, or you know, these different things, because they're working. They're the workers. And so, to me, the governing committees would be taking care of the villagers.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. That's just a regular thing.
Yeah.
But as we've
Devolved.
devolved, as we've been, you know, domesticated and colonized, you know, we've been, you know, led astray.
Straight up. Confused.
So, man, you know, to the point where we can't really just have some solemn peace of mind and comfortability so that we can gather our mind, be able to create a life, and we can even possibly follow our dreams, maybe.
Oh, wow. Don't that say that in the Constitution?
Right.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
Period.
Right? That's supposed to be
all we're supposed
protected.
to be doing.
Right? Oh, but that wasn't written for us. So forget.
Was it
Never
for
mind.
us? Okay.
Never mind.
Now,
Scratch that.
Now I know. That changes everything.
Right?
So
Damn.
yeah, so this is my home on the planet. So whether I got a tent outside, RV, home, now really you're not really supposed to be inside so much.
That part.
So they got us tripping like, oh, I don't have a home or I don't have a box to nest in. But you're really supposed to be outside getting the elements,
Yep.
the winds, the sun,
Yep.
the grounding,
Yep.
even seeing each other.
Talking to each other. which people don't even know how to do anymore
Nah.
because of social media.
Nah.
People can't carry a conversation,
Mm-mm.
but they'll be on that phone all day long. And then when they meet the person that they've been on the phone all day long with, it's like silence, crickets. It's weird.
Trippy.
It's very weird. There's a whole generation that don't know how to communicate no more.
Extremely.
Yeah,
Man.
wild.
And it's even been abbreviated, the whole abbreviations of everything
Right,
is how they communicate, shortening everything.
for real.
So you're not really exchanging the vibrational tunes and tones that is connecting you
Yeah,
and tuning your own self because you hear yourself, you're vibrating.
people reacting.
Mm-hmm.
Right, people listen to each other not to hear what people say, but how am I going to respond? Like, I already know what I'm going to say. Even though you haven't finished what
Wow.
you're saying, I already know what I'm going to say.
Right. To play this whole put together, present and on top of everything.
What we were talking about earlier, masks.
Exactly.
To, like, maintain a mask. To maintain what I want you to see.
I want you to see. And they suffering inside, possibly. Or not suffering, but just anxiety, which is a kind of a suffer.
Totally.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And they not really just naturally getting along and
Yeah.
learning as they grow and
Yep.
everything's good.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's, normal when you're domesticated. We in these schools that's not teaching us how to engage and teach us how to really
Think.
really be present, critically think and take
Right.
it. That's really present. When you critically
Yes.
think, you step it away.
Yes.
Ain't afraid of asking questions and answering, expressing giving feedback when something may be uncomfortable or
Doesn't make sense.
doesn't make sense.
Right.
Oof.
Well, don't you people get what you call it, criticized. If you're in a classroom
That's
and you're like,
right.
that doesn't make sense to me, the teacher will be like, well, why doesn't it make sense to you? How dare you think outside the box?
Or allow the students to smirk and
Yeah.
off of a question that may seem off the wall or left field,
Yep.
but it's maybe just a depth that they haven't reached.
Yep. I remember one of my favorite teachers would always say, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Exactly. What happened to that life?
Yeah. Right? That don't exist.
Nah.
Don't ask.
So yeah, we got to get back to our mental state. See, mental health is not just when it's a person that goes into the um, what do you call it, the psych house or whatever you call it. That's when it's so far gone. But really, mental health is like, man, like we were just talking about. Are you able to have a sensible conversation? Say when you're wrong and keep going. It's no big deal. All these things.
And allow people to have a different opinion.
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
People won't talk to each other because their opinions are different. It's like they're supposed to be different. We've had different experiences. We've had different understandings of stuff. We built different. We look different. Everything's going to be. We're not going to have the same. We're not a monolith. Like humanity is not like a monolithic block.
Boom.
We're different, and that's what I love about gardens, right? There's nothing in in natural state. Gardens, animals, the forest, nothing is the same, and it's not supposed to be. That's the one thing that actually connects all of us is that we're different.
Exactly.
That actually what makes us
That's what's
connected.
Exactly. And that's what makes a beautiful picture.
Hello.
You need more colors.
Otherwise, it's boring.
Come on. Duh.
Drab.
Look how long it's taken. For
But
these
that's what this
simple
society
things.
is, right? Carbon copy each other.
The black
Copy
and white.
black and white, and copy what you see. Whatever is being presented or pushed down or programmed, that's how we're supposed to be. And anything outside of that gets laughed at, is looked different, isn't accepted, is made fun of. Oh gosh, what is that? Why are you acting different?
Right.
I'm just being me. You should be you.
Right, right. And I'm like, where did that come from, though? In the schools, that's supposed to
And
be
that's
the.
all white supremacy to me,
Hmm,
right? Where
hmm,
they want everything to be the same.
hmm.
Everything got to be the same, and that's just trickled down to every other part, to like religion, to everything.
Well, the same part, I get that, but I'm talking about when the children are talking bad about a creative mind or a deep thinker or asking questions, and even the
Mm,
teachers not being supportive of the, you know.
yeah. Well, I think that that's part of that too, that controlling thing of, if we're not being given the tools to be critical, and everyone's supposed to be like everybody else and copy everybody else. When you get somebody who thinks outside the box or who's just a little bit different, folks either laugh at it or they're scared of it,
Hmm.
or deep down they're jealous about it.
True.
Cause like, why can't I be like that? Why do I?
Most definite.
There's a lot of that
Wow.
that goes on.
The envy.
Yep.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Yeah. All of this to me is envy. You know,
Mm.
that's why back to the housing and the not allowing us to have a pursuit of happiness
Mhm.
is envy. Like,
Hmm.
folks don't want to see us having a good
Hello.
life
Right.
without taxes, bills, and these different things. Because a lot of us was like, yo, after the whole bank thing and the um, Occupy and these different things,
Mhm.
like, yo, this whole American dream lies. Like,
It don't work.
why am I even going to work, 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 and then give you all the money I worked for?
Right.
Not saying that just being out there without any stability is the way. However, one needs to start somewhere.
Yep.
And so I think people are thinking about it, okay, let me switch up the way I'm even living.
Yep. There's that whole movement of like that just finally getting back to our communities, which we've always been like this, living off the grid. This society has imposed a situation where we had to live off the grid because we
Hmm.
didn't fit in
Hmm.
until assimilation, which I
Hmm.
don't think was the best thing to happen
Not at all.
at all. I think things got worse for oppressed communities when they said, well, you should assimilate. I think everything fell apart after that. But now there's this movement of everyone wanting to live off the grid, and that's pretty much what homeless people many times have been forced to do, is live off the grid. And what I like to say is that, when everyone knows this big earthquake's coming, this natural disaster is coming, maybe like there'll be World War III on this land is coming. When that happens, the people who are currently unhoused, they're already living through World War III. They're already living the apocalypse. They're already living that unnatural disaster. They're the economic and racial refugees of gentrification. And when it really hits the fan, and like look what happened in L.A. All the How many thousands of folks are homeless right now, and how many? And so many of them are rich people, and a lot of them probably hate the homeless people. But now they need to learn how to survive like the homeless. They actually can learn from the homeless.
Come on.
The homeless are the experts of the apocalypse.
Well said.
All right. So that's kind of what I like to, talk about, is just
Yeah.
that, and change that narrative of like, we got to stop looking down on poor people.
Right.
We got to stop looking down on people who are being forced
Hmm.
to survive
Hmm.
because we've been pushed out of housing, because we've been pushed out of the cost of living of Oakland. Like, who knew it was going to become like this? Who knew Oakland was going to be more expensive than San Francisco or Manhattan? What the heck happened here?
We did. We built
Ooh
this up,
wee.
and now,
We allowed it to happen.
well, what I mean is that, well, yeah, we did, but like, we
Mhm.
always building stuff up,
Mhm.
and then,
That people want to take.
I mean, cause it's that good. I mean, it's
Mhm.
some good food in every way. You know what I'm saying? So I don't blame them. They know it's good.
Mhm.
It's just that we, like you said, we don't have enough organizations and organizing with other organizations to have a conglomerate, a guild of folks that are going to say, hey, developer, you can't build that, or if you do, you include us.
Mhm.
We'll take it from here, and we'll do our own intake of
Yep.
the unhoused, and we'll get this land.
Yep.
Boom, 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 and really take charge, be the charge.
Yep. We've allowed the people that have proclaimed themselves to be leaders by being elected or appointed to take the reins, and we're just waiting for them to do the right thing. But that's never happened in this country, no matter what they look like in there. So I don't know why we're still waiting.
Weird.
I don't know why we're still waiting.
I don't know why we still be voting like that.
That part.
But that's another subject.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, we definitely need to come together on a major way, because it's been happening since the beginning.
Since they stole this land. And one thing that we like to say with the village is that, homelessness never existed on this land until the colonizers come. And the very first group to ever become or experience homelessness are the Native Americans. Until we start talking about that, we're not going to end homelessness or housing injustice or, land inequities or hoarding of resources until we really talk about what happened to the Native Americans. And I want to shout out the Ohlone tribe. We are on their land. Their land has been stolen, and they don't get federal recognition. The federal government says that the Ohlones don't exist.
Wow.
And right now, they are in this moment, the moment we are in right now, are fighting to gain federal recognition. They did a whole, they walked and rode horses starting on Indigenous Peoples Day of 2024, October 2024. And they walked across the country to Washington, D.C. to meet with the federal government's Bureau of Indian Affairs. And they came there in peace. My niece and nephew went with them. They're half Lakota. And they went over there with the rest. As the Ohlone walked across the country, other indigenous people, other tribes, federally recognized and not, joined them to make sure that they got their federal recognition. That's powerful. And when they got to Washington, D.C., they were attacked. And they never got to meet with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, even though they had an appointment for months in advance.
Whoa.
They got there, they got attacked, they tried to take their horses. My nephew got arrested. Many people got arrested and brutalized. And then they were let go, their horses were let go, and then they held camp on the nation's capital for months. This was not covered at all. That when they got to New York, their numbers were like in the hundreds of Native folks uniting across tribes and nations to show up for the Ohlone. Yeah.
And walked?
They walked and rode horses across the country in the dead of winter, man.
Old school stuff.
Straight up. And natives believe that every footstep you take when you take a walk, every footstep is a prayer. Like, it's literally, that footstep is a prayer, that footstep is a prayer. So they had hundreds of people walking in prayer to get to the Capitol to be like, you got to recognize us. And, yeah. And they're back here now. And, much love to the Ohlone folks. And I hope that they get their land back and they get recognized that they are still here.
Nah, we got to put that on blast.
Yeah. But with that, let's get into a little break, a musical break, and when we come back, we're going to dive right into homelessness here in Oakland. We're going to talk about where's the money. There's been hundreds of millions of dollars that's come into Oakland from the federal government, from the state government, from private donors to end homelessness, and yet it's multiplied. So when we get back out of this musical break, we're going to talk about that. Where the heck is the money? All right. How we sounding, DJ Igor?
Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. This ain't the same place it was, different space and buzz. No more dope fiends taking drugs, thugs placing slugs in their enemies. Mothers waking up, only just to fall on both their knees. Why'd you take them, Lord? No homeless people gazing up, thinking vacant thoughts. Brand new condominium sit where there was a vacant lot. And still surrounded by this calmness, I feel shaken up. Nothing is familiar, feels like money took the place of love. When they see me, old ladies look afraid like they could run at any moment, even though me, I ain't taking nothing. It's like this place has lost the essence of the place I'm from. Went to to the barbershop I used to frequent, places run out of business and everyone I knew is straight just gone. Feel I should take the bong and hit it to escape the song. But feeling that you feel when those in power take you home, that feeling is exactly why I had to write this song. It was a place I used to call home. I try to chase the energy, but now it's all gone. And only memories remain. I try to feel the feeling, but the city ain't the same. They say it's all to improve, but tell me where communities are supposed to move when they've been living in the trap, and those who make it out are hardly ever giving back. Tell me, and where do all the people go who can't afford the change? They board the train, ignore the pain of leaving all that they've known all their life, the only place they live for all their days, where they learned all their ways and spent 1,000 holidays. I guess that life is really all about the dollar chase. Some move to live where family members are across the state. Some disappear and stay anonymous. It's all a maze. These people were pillars that made the hood a stronger place. The city lost its soul and gained a lot of hipsters, but does that really make it better or a little weirder? And will the idea of America come to fruition, or is to push the poor away really the real agenda? No jobs, poor education, some things ain't really changing. It's time we learn for self and do for self. Fuck me impatient. Inflation rises, people moving, but the rich are staying. Sometimes it seems the future plans include a third world nation. It was a place I used to call home. I try to chase the energy, but now it's all gone. And only memories remain. I try to feel the feeling, but the city ain't the same. They say it's all to improve, but tell me where communities are supposed to move when they've been living in the trap, and those who make it out are hardly ever giving back. Tell me.
That was Oakland's own Gift of Gab, one of my favorite MCs. Rest in peace to him. We lost him in about 5 years ago now, almost 4.5. And I just thought that song would be perfect for our first episode. He said a whole lot that makes sense and applies. But let's get into it. We're gonna talk about this homeless money, right? And unhoused home money for the unhoused.
Was that kind of triggered?
I think he was a little triggered, but that's all right. It's understandable. It's a loaded word, filled with a whole bunch of like negative connotation and criminal elements. But when we started doing this work with the village in 2016, there were encampments all over Oakland, and nobody in City Hall was talking about it. Like, I go to City Hall meetings, and nobody was talking about it. They were just talking about the condos and the beer gardens, and police is probably the most touchy subject they were talking about, which is kind of why we started the village, was to get them to talk about this stuff. And it worked. We did a whole bunch of direct actions, took over land, built tiny houses for people, built services for people, got a lot of media attention, and that got the city to start talking. But they didn't go in the direction we hoped. They got lots and lots and lots of money, and at first we're like, okay, cool, now you're getting some funds, and here's a whole bunch of ideas from the people on the streets of what they need to get out of this situation. And instead of using that money to end homelessness and to prevent more people from becoming homeless, that money started disappearing. And so since 2018 is when literally hundreds of millions of dollars have come into Oakland that have been earmarked specifically for homelessness. And we did an audit. We did 2 audits, and there needs to be another audit. We worked with the former councilwoman, Nikki Fortuna Boss, who was really a champion for the unhoused. And she did what she could. But, I didn't understand why so much stuff was so hard to do into Oakland until I started learning about city charters. And every city, I didn't know this, so I'll share it with y'all, but every city in the U.S. has a thing called a charter, and that's like their governing constitution. And I started reading the Charter of Oakland and the Charter of Frisco and the Charter of Sacramento and Fresno and New York and L.A. And at the time I had read it, Oakland's city charter was like no other city charter I had read. It literally, Jerry Brown did this in 2000. He removed, we learned about like there's supposed to be checks and balances in government. You got your executive body, which is like the president, or locally the mayor. You got your judicial body, which is the courts, and you got your legislative body, which is like Congress, or here in Oakland, locally, city council. And he removed the checks and balances in Oakland and called it a strong mayor amendment, and amended the charter of Oakland so that so city council is responsible for passing a budget and creating policies and legislation. The mayor and her administration, which is like her cabinet, are supposed to follow that budget and follow the laws, the legislation that the city council creates. But because of what Jerry Brown did in 2000, that doesn't have to happen anymore. He changed the charter of Oakland so that whatever the city council does, the mayor and the administration don't have to do it. So we were able to pass a lot of legislation. When I say we, I'm talking about members of the community, organizations like the Homeless Advocacy Working Group, Oakland's Tenants Union, Just Cities, The Village. A lot of us, we worked on a lot of good policies that are laws now in Oakland that we were able to get the city council to pass over the years. But the mayors, the different mayors from Libby Schaaf to Sheng Tao, who've been the mayors who've been in charge during this explosion of homelessness that we've seen, never followed them to this day. Don't follow the budget to this day. And what I learned by working with the councilwoman, Nikki Fortunata Bass, is whenever she tried to remind, to put it nicely, the administration or the mayor that we passed this legislation, and can we hear about what you're doing with the homeless money and this and this and that, they would threaten her with a lawsuit because she was in violation of the city charter. So that's the kind of corruption, the embedded, manufactured corruption we're dealing with.
Wow.
And so what we were able to do working with her was get the city's homelessness services and all the nonprofits that get money from the city of Oakland to get them audited. And so let's get into, we got a video from when that audit came out a couple of years ago. So we're gonna watch this video and then we're gonna talk about what that video is talking about. So yeah, where has the money gone?
$68 million were spent in the last 3 fiscal years to house people in Oakland.
Council President Nikki Fortunato Bass called for an audit that revealed some strategies are working to help the homeless, but more has to be done. Crown 4's Ella Sogomonian live in the newsroom with a breakdown. Ella.
Well, Grant and Vicki, the audit calls homelessness the most pressing issue facing the city, saying Oakland's unsheltered population grew by 25% between 2018 and 2021 and is home to more than half of the population living on Alameda County streets. The report identified nearly 9,000 people were helped at some capacity during that time frame, but that the city should brace for many more people in need in the years to come. The takeaway was there is room to improve on getting more people into longer-term permanent housing because of just how successful those programs proved to be, and that the city needs to more reliably enroll people into benefits like income. The audit also revealed that there was no effective strategy in tackling growing encampments, and a major problem pointed out was inadequate data and monitoring to better understand success rates with clear metrics. Oakland Council President Nikki Fortunato Bass, who called for and funded this audit, said, quote, Oakland must create stronger programs and services with management systems for accountability and results so that we can develop an impactful strategic plan to address the homelessness crisis. Our unsheltered neighbors deserve services that lead to dignity and permanent housing, and our taxpayers deserve accountability and results from our investments. In April, Alameda County released a plan that predicts that by the year 2026, they will need 26,000 permanent housing units, when last year there were just 3,200. So demand is far outpacing supply, and permanent housing inventory has to increase 8-fold. The audit admitted that navigating this issue became all the more challenging, coupled with the COVID-19 pandemic. But one benefit birthed in that time that did significantly help was Project Homekey, where existing buildings like hotels were used to immediately house people. The council president will set a date on Thursday for a more in-depth discussion at a later time. In the newsroom, Ella Sogomonian, Crown 4 News.
Thank you, Ella.
There was a lot in that. I wanted to point out a couple of things that that audit also found out that was not mentioned in that news report. One, that when the city was working with unhoused people and trying to move them into shelters or hotels or tough sheds or whatnot, they didn't have an intake process. So they weren't collecting like necessary data to understand what people's actually needs were, what kind of services they really need. They weren't creating programs to that were catered to. Like, that's one thing with homelessness is like we are not one. And I say we because I was unhoused in Oakland for the past 8 years. I just got housed a year ago, actually, not with any help from the city or these nonprofits getting money. And there was no process to actually make sure people were elevating and getting to a position where they could get into permanent housing and hold on to that permanent housing. There was also no tracking of people. So like when the city would evict folks and not offer them shelter, they were not tracking where the people were scattering to. When people did, on the rare occasions that people got into some kind of shelter program, the city did not track what happened to them when they were exited from those programs, when their time was up. There was no evaluation process. So people who were using the programs had no way to like give any feedback or input about how to make the programs better or stronger. There was no evaluation process for the staff to talk about how to make things better. There was no evaluation process between the nonprofits and the city. Here's a big one. This said that the city got $68 million, and this was in 2022 when this came out, right? We're now in 2025. That number is much, much larger. What this audit found out is the city had no budget for all the money coming in. That's just baseline basic, right? If you're gonna ask for money, like if you're an organization or if you're like the city government and you're asking for money in the hundreds of millions to deal with a situation, to do a project, to do a program, to have a department, you need to have a budget. Why am I asking for all this money? And how am I gonna spend that money? So that I can be accountable for all the money I'm asking for. If any of these organizations, groups like the Village actually asked for money and didn't have a budget, we go to jail. We would have our standing revoked. The city was dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars and had no budget. They were shooting from the hip of how they were going to spend this money. That's huge. They also had no goals. So they were asking for this money, but they didn't have any goals of like, we want to be able to build X number of permanent housing. In fact, in the city's blueprint, they got a blueprint for ending homelessness here in Oakland. It's called the PATH Plan, P-A-T-H. I can't remember what it stands for. In that PATH Plan, so there's one thing that, Aikwe,
Yes.
what's the one thing that will end homelessness?
Let's see, the one thing, money.
Permanent housing.
Permanent housing, of course.
Right? Guess how many units of permanent housing are on the city's PATH Plan? The blueprint to end homelessness. 0.
Wow.
0. But there are like 3,000 shelter beds that people get exited out of every night, or if they're lucky, in a year. And guess where they get exited out of? Back to the streets. Right? So that's a setup right there, right? That is a setup to make sure people do not get housed, but to make sure all these folks are making money, their careers. So homelessness hasn't become a human rights, or it hasn't been addressed as a human rights issue here in Oakland. It's been addressed by the people who got the power and the resources as a career opportunity.
Right.
And so they got no goals, like we're gonna make this many permanent housing, we're gonna have this many caseworkers. There are no caseworkers. There's gonna be, literally, we're gonna have this many medics. Only the county is offering medics, not the city. And there's all these, they have no goals. They're just shooting from the hip. They have no ways to tell if the programs are actually working. And here's the most important thing. We found out through this audit that's not talked about in this news report, but it is so important. Most of the money's going to evictions. They're spending very close to $1,500 per hour on evictions, and then they get overtime. We were at an eviction today that started yesterday, so it's now in its second day. And by the time we left that eviction over on East 12th and 23rd Ave, they had been there for 10 hours today already. So when we left, they were already in 2 hours of overtime. That's time and a half. So that's where the money's going, folks. It's not going to solve homelessness. It's going to make sure people stay unhoused, get deeper into homelessness, get deeper into trauma, get deeper into crisis, get deeper into mental health. We're going to, later on, one of the things we're going to do in each of these episodes is we're going to share you some of the testimonies of the folks who are living out there, and kind of what it's like out there, but also what these evictions have been doing to people. These evictions have been breaking people. And over the since August of last year, the city has ramped up their evictions in a way. I've been going to evictions and have survived evictions since 2016, and I've never seen the level of brutality and inhumanity that's happening right now. They're lying when they say that they're giving people services. They're not. They rarely ever have. They're not providing people with shelter. They're not offering people support, nothing. And what's happening right now is, at least before they let you maybe drive your RV off, they'd let you collect some of your property. People are not being allowed that. They are taking people's vehicles that they live in. They are bulldozing people's homes. They are taking every last piece of property people own, and they're leaving them on the side of the road. And that was happening here and there over the years, but since August of this last year, it's happening every day. And there are people out on the streets that I've known for like 6, 7, 8, 10 years who have been unhoused all those years and maintained sobriety all those years, did not take to drugs and alcohol, which happens. The longer you're out there, the more susceptible you are to that stuff. And people, use them for different reasons. It's a survival tactic. It's a coping mechanism. It's a protection mechanism, actually, too, for some folks. And I'm now over just the past, few months, past, 3-4 months, people who've been through 5 or 6 evictions of like being ripped of everything they have over and over again, every 2 weeks, every month. Folks who've maintained their sobriety over the years are now not. And across the board, what I'm seeing are people being broken in ways I've never seen people broken before. And people are using and literally saying, I've given up, period. So that's what the money's going to, folks. The money's going to break people down. They don't want to build permanent housing for us because they don't want us here in Oakland anymore. They want the people who live in condos. And here was a report that came out last year. All those condos in downtown Oakland? It turned out about 40% of them have been empty for the past 10 years.
What?
Why is there no legislation or law to make it like if your condo don't sell in 6 months, in a year, because we have a housing crisis,
Right.
we have a homeless crisis,
Right.
why doesn't the city be like, well, now you got to make it affordable? They're sitting empty. Hundreds of units.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
We need to put that on blast too.
Oh, that's why we're here.
Most definitely.
Yes.
We need a newspaper. Just like
Do
a
people still
newsletter
read
that
those?
a newsletter. Newsletter. But yeah,
Something.
newspapers, yeah.
Folks on the streets can read them. Because, it's hard to keep
If
your
it was
phone on.
Something worth reading, I'll read. It's the news. It's what's actually happening. If we can have a news line and anchors and things that's really gonna give it to us real,
For real.
and the people are not gonna know because they just working every day or taking care of the family or whatever the case.
Or working 3 or 4 jobs to keep on
Just
that
to keep-
apartment that just went up like 10,000 times.
Indeed.
That's one thing I've noticed with like even doing this work. When we started doing this work and we were just feeding folks and just giving love and support to people, I had a whole lot of homies who were out there with me, who were helping out, and a lot of my original crew has left Oakland, has been pushed out of Oakland, or they're working 3 or 4 jobs and no longer have time to volunteer, to make that time to hit the streets with us. And I feel like that's happening across the board. So many people in Oakland right now are treading water to hold on to these crappy apartments. No one has time. No one has time to look up and find out that there's a bunch of corruption going on.
Right.
And things are happening. You know what? During COVID, it was a shelter in place, and we didn't shelter in place. We were unhoused. Why are we going to shelter in place, right? And what I witnessed was everything shut down except construction. And you remember they said that only essential stuff could maintain?
Right.
When did construction of condos become essential? And I realized, I said, when people start coming out of their houses after COVID, Oakland is not going to look the same. It's going to be a whole new landscape that got built while people were locked in their houses. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that was part of it with the 5G and all
Man.
that. They was putting up, right.
Yeah, that was during that time too. Yep. Wild.
Yeah, change that mind, 'cause it ain't no different. I mean, it's just another minute.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. Definitely. So one thing that we wanted to talk about particularly was East 12. Notorious East 12. We're gonna talk about a specific part of East 12, from 14th Avenue to 23rd Avenue, and my partner Tracy, who's supposed to be here today, so she lived on East 12 for a long time. I met her on East 12. She was somebody that I was visiting weekly and providing, just friendship and food, and we built a sisterhood with each other through that. But she was living there, and before we jump into that, let's look at East 12. Let's hit the next YouTube video, and then we'll jump in and break that all down.
We are hearing from Oakland's mayor about her new executive order aimed at clearing homeless encampments. The order directs city departments to get more aggressive with enforcing existing city policy in the wake of the recent Supreme Court ruling. Our Katie Nielsen talked with some unhoused residents who have been building their homes for years and now may be the city's next target.
This is the encampment along East 12th Street, the one that's visible from 880. It's most known for the shed homes, makeshift cottages cobbled together from plywood and scraps. But the street itself is overrun with trash, and due to the conditions, it's another high priority area the city wants to clean.
And we can lock everything. We can lock the door too.
This is the plywood shed that's home to 5 people in East Oakland. They have a generator that runs the lights, multiple rooms, 2 flat screen TVs, and an entire makeshift kitchen. It's taken 10 years to build and is at least 500 square feet. It's one of many sheds lining East 12th Street, the site of one of Oakland's largest and most prolific encampments, now that the site on MLK was cleared last week. During that effort, about 35 to 40 people were forced to leave the area, and 25 accepted an offer to get into some type of housing.
No, it's not fair at all. A lot of people don't know where they're going. A lot of people don't know where they're going to wind up.
John says his shed isn't quite as big as others, but he's put a lot of time into it and doesn't know what he'd do if the city tore it down.
I don't know, actually, at the moment. I never thought about it. If it were rain, it won't rain on my head. So that's all I'm worried about now.
Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao says encampments like these are a major safety risk. And while it's no longer required by law, the city will still offer a shelter bed to every person at an encampment the city decides to clear.
We have to prioritize how we combat this because it's been so many years of not doing anything.
The latest homeless count showed the city of Oakland has about 3,600 people living on the streets. The new executive order gives the city the right to clear an encampment with less than 24 hours notice if it's an emergency situation where the encampment threatens critical infrastructure or other essential services. But the mayor says Alameda County needs to do more to help and bring in state and federal resources.
I do believe that the county needs to bring all the cities together. We try coming together, but of course, if you don't have someone encamping in your city because they're being sent to Oakland, you're not going to have the incentives in your city to actually stand these programs up.
But for those like John who disagree with the policy, he says the best way to fight back is at the ballot box.
I don't think it's fair, but that's why we got to vote.
The city has been working on this encampment for years, removing more than 100 tons of trash. The concern now, some of these structures have gotten so big, they have a second story. That creates a risk because they could fall on the road below, not only being dangerous to the people that live in them, but also to drivers.
The Oakland Police Officers Association issued a statement about Mayor Tao's executive order, calling it a last-minute political stunt before the recall campaign. Voters will decide whether to recall Tao as mayor on November 5th.
All right. So, before we get into it, I just want to address a few things just to get that out the way. First of all, most of that trash you saw there was not from the encampment. That was from housed people who didn't want to pay their dump fees, or from contractors and businesses who didn't want to pay their dump fees. If you see some of the stuff that gets, where'd all the couches and the mattresses come from, right? Where did all the baby diapers come from? Where did all the massive trash, the furniture came from? That wasn't unhoused people making trash. That was people dumping it there because, going back to that word homelessness,
Right.
how it's associated with trash. And being able to dispose people like they trash. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And we're actually going to talk more about that later on in this podcast today, about the illegal dumping and the trash and everything we're seeing, and how we want to clean Oakland campaign, which is really talking about human beings. And then we'll get into another episode and talk about this buzz thing, this Grant Pass Supreme Court decision that she mentioned in the beginning of the segment. It was a Supreme Court decision that was landmark because it overturned previous decisions that said unhoused people were protected by the Eighth Amendment. That's protection of cruel and unusual punishment. And that basically said that cities can't evict and tow people from their encampments if they have nowhere to go. And that part of the Supreme Court decision was overturned, but only that part, meaning the Eighth Amendment. But what was not overturned was everything else that came with that, which meant that the city still had to offer people shelter, still had to offer people services, couldn't, harm people further than they were. But across the country, Oakland included, cities are being like, nope, we can do anything we want to homeless people now. And that's why we're seeing this ramp up of like brutality to unhoused people, is because of that Supreme Court decision, the Grants Pass versus Johnson. What's so deep is that Grants Pass was a city in Oregon, and when that Supreme Court decision happened in June, I was following Grants Pass. Grants Pass didn't start evicting people, because if you actually read, I'm into stuff like that, so I read the whole Supreme Court opinion, and the Supreme Court judges said, Grants Pass, you can't evict the homeless people that were involved in this ruling, or any other homeless people. You have to find 5 parcels of public land to move all of them to, so they have a sanctuary. That's literally part of what Grants Pass said. Yes, you're not protected by your Eighth Amendment, but... And cities across the country just decided not to listen to the but part. And I was following Grants Pass, and while our city was starting to demolish people and leaving them on the side of the road with nothing, Grants Pass did not evict anybody, because they were, and they still are, looking for 5 parcels of land to move everybody, and they're getting pushback from house residents because nobody wants the homeless people around them. But because of that pushback, so while the rest of the country is evicting homeless people, Grants Pass, Oregon, has not evicted nobody, because they're following the Supreme Court decision that said they got to find public land to put people on. Right? So we'll get into that in another podcast. Okay. But what were some of your, what did you think of that video and some of the stuff that was being said? It was a lot.
It was a lot. So it kind of, a lot of it went over my head, just to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, so the big thing was that they were talking about the trash, and they were talking about a few things. Was, what was it, city? Oh, one thing, another thing, the mayor said, or the former mayor, because she'd been kicked out, that other cities are sending their homeless people here. That's a myth. There's this myth in Oakland that, I don't know, the myth must have been generated in City Hall, because there's this idea in the general public that the people who are unhoused here in Oakland are not from Oakland. And this, like I said, the city don't track homeless people, but the county does. And we do. And I can tell you, if somebody who's out in those streets every day, most of the people who are unhoused in Oakland were born and raised here, or born in another city and came here as a child and went to school here, went to elementary school here, went to high school here, and now we're homeless. And Alameda County has done a better job than the city. I wouldn't say great, but better job than the city of documenting people. And they've documented that most of the people who live in Oakland who are unhoused not only are from Oakland, but also are from other parts of Alameda. So they're not Alameda County. So we're not getting people from Wisconsin over here to be unhoused.
Not Wisconsin, but I do know there is a community of, like up north that comes down and go back and forth too. Just
Up north, like Northern California?
Yeah.
Because of the fires?
No.
Okay. That's their lifestyle?
That's the lifestyle.
Okay.
Yeah. RV life, you know, and trailers and living in the woods, off the grid. I noticed that.
I've seen some of that. I haven't seen enough of it to say that that's who lives on Oakland streets. There's a portion, a very small portion, but the folks on the streets are the folks who are from here. You know, and so she said that, and I was like, that is not a lie. I mean, that is a lie. And then the lady was talking about how people are building these structures that aren't safe and that have second stories, and now they're going to collapse. If you've actually been in some people don't know what they're doing. But if we're talking about East 12th Street, so first of all, we started building houses there in 2020, January 2020, right before the pandemic happened. And we showed folks how to build houses. And there are people there who already, a lot of folks on East 12 do handyman work, are contractors, are builders, are engineers, are plumbers, are electricians.
Somebody had a two-story house.
Ben Laden, that's Ben Laden. He got a two-story house. All the houses we build are 2 stories. Our houses are 2-story houses with porches and lofts and a front door and a back door. You feel me? So people don't feel like they caged in there. Way to get out if you need to go to, you know? 5 windows, you know what I'm saying? Storage areas. And so folks down there just copied the houses that we started doing, and those houses are solid. Those houses are solid.
Man, we need those plans.
For real.
Just give it to each site.
Yep. Before those houses were visible there, it was a whole community. So there used to be trees on that median on East 12th between 14th and 18th Avenue. It was all trees, and people have built these bomb-ass tree houses. Like 2-3-story tree houses with spiraling stairs that you couldn't see from the streets. And this was like 2015, 2016. And I'm sure that was when I noticed them.
Wow.
And I noticed them because I was out there, you know, checking in on people and making food. And when the city found out that there was a whole bunch of people living in tree houses out there, guess what they did? They cut down the trees.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
They
cut down the trees.
They went Avatar on them.
They did. That is Avatar. Oh my God. I love that movie.
We were just talking about that.
Yes, we were. Wow. Yes. We gotta watch that movie again.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what was really interesting with so going back to where the money, we're gonna connect these dots. So 3 years ago, the Lau Family Redevelopment Agency, which it started in Sacramento. They got an office in Richmond, and they had an office in the Dubs, right there on 23rd and Foothill. And now they got buildings all over Oakland because they got $1 million 3 years ago to house everybody on East 12th. And then they got another $1 million to house everybody on East 12th because they hadn't housed everybody on East 12th yet. So they got $2 million total. And our girl Tracy, who's supposed to be here, she actually ended up getting a job at Lau Family as their homeless advocate. And that's how they got the funding, because they made her their poster child. that she was the advocate with the village. She had the lived experience and the organizing and advocacy experience to make this effort of Lau family to really succeed. And what she learned while she was there is that that money was not going to East 12 at all.
Crazy.
And she started asking questions, and they weren't giving her no answers. And eventually they told her that, you know what, we don't need you in Oakland anymore. And she's been here. She's a refugee from Yen, and she's been here since she came to the U.S. You know, most of her life she's been here in Funktown, in the Dubs of Oakland. And they're like, we're going to move you to our San Pablo office where you can be a receptionist. So she quit. And then we went to city council to tell them, like, what the hell's going on? And Lau family showed up with a whole bunch of DAT spreadsheets of all these names of people that they, from East 12 supposedly, that they housed to use that $2 million. 3 or 4 of those people are from East 12. The rest of the folks, nobody knows. Who are these people? Where'd they come from? But I read the grant that they got from the city. The grant specifically says you're going to use this money to provide services and housing to the people of East 12. And then when people, and I would tell people that, and they would go to their office and be like, Nita sent me down here, I'm supposed to have services. And she had the audacity, the executive director, Kathy Rothschild, or Rothberg or something.
Oh,
right. But she's like Laotian or Mien, but you know, she got that name. And she told people, oh, call Anita, she can help you. I don't got $1 million. I didn't have an office. I was running stuff out of my RV. How am I going to help people when I can't even help myself to get into housing? But you got $1 million and then another $1 million, and you telling people to come to me? You lost your mind.
Wow.
Right, so that happened, and then in April of 2024, the city got $7.2 million from the state of California's Encampment Resolution Fund, is I think what it's called. And they applied for it, and they said, we're going to provide 3 encampments, East 12, Mosswood, and the MLK corridor from West Grand to 26th Avenue with direct services. And once we connect them with direct services, we're going to purchase the Jack London Inn, and we're going to move all of them into the Jack London Inn, where they're going to stay for a year. Mind you, we're talking about like 150-something people, and there was only 80 rooms at Jack London Inn, so the math's already not mathing. And then we're going to move them all into permanent housing, and that's how we're going to use that $7.2 million. And then they got the money in April, and then in September, they evicted everyone from Mosswood. No one got no services. No one got any shelter. The city doesn't know where those people went. But we do, because we track them. We keep in touch with people. And then the next month, they evicted MLK, took all their property, left them with nothing. So many organizations were out there documenting this, making sure we knew where people went, making sure people got tents replaced, clothes replaced, shoes replaced. They took a man's wheelchair and left him on the side of the road without his wheelchair. They took people's medication. I mean, they took everything, right? And those folks did not get any services prior to the eviction. The city didn't track them, so the city didn't know where they went. And then there was about, I'd say, 50 people that lived in that community. And in the video we just watched, they claimed that the city gave 25 people shelter. The city offered 15 people shelter at the Mandela Parkway Tough Shed. 14 people went there and got in. They offered 16 people shelter. 14 people went there and got in. 2 people went there, and there was no more room left. And then the city said that, we threw away 40 tons of trash at that encampment. So that was 40 tons of people's property. Right. Their clothes, their food, their shoes, their dog food. So now the dogs don't got no food. Their cat food, now the cats got no food. They got no food. Their medication, their IDs, their cell phones, their laptops, like everything got thrown out. Wow. Everything.
That's theft.
And that to me is attempted murder. When you, what the city is doing right now is attempted murder.
Yep, I can classify.
Right?
For sure.
That's attempted murder. there was an eviction that happened over on Fallon Street about 3 weeks ago, and one of the men who lived there, he's been living in the same exact spot right in front of the entrance of the Laney parking lot. Sorry, he's on 7th and Fallon. He was on 7th, right where the Laney parking lot entrance was. And he's been there for 25 years. And the first time the city and nonprofits ever went to visit him was to serve him an eviction notice. And he's 69 years old. And with so many health conditions, so many mental health conditions, so many physical health conditions, I was able to help prevent his eviction at that time because I found out that the city had an American with Disability Act office in the city. It's a federal department that's in the city of Oakland. So I wrote to them and said, these are all he wants services. He wants ADA compliant services. They're not offering it to him. And these are all his conditions. And if they leave him there with nothing and take everything he has, he'll die. So, and the ask was, can you give him 4 to 6 weeks to kind of wrap his head around this? And can the city use that 4 to 6 weeks to find him ADA compliant transitional shelter? So he spent 4 to 6 weeks wrapping his head around that and kind of figuring out how he's going to do that. Because he would sell, what he would do is get a lot of free stuff off of Craigslist and then sell it at the flea market right there at Laney College every Saturday and Sunday. That's how he made his living for 25 years. Wow. And the city did not use that time to find him ADA compliant shelter. And they evicted him on Monday. And he was able to relocate his truck around the corner, and they took everything else of his, but he still has his truck, and he's trying to figure it out. You know, he's trying, because he was able to be stable in like the most dire situation. But how do you have someone living there for 25 years, and the first time you ever, City of Oakland and nonprofits, ever interact with him is to evict him? So the third encampment that was tacked onto that $7.2 million is East 12th. And when Mosswood and MLK happened, I reached out to the city like, what the heck is going on? And this was at a moment when Nikki Fortuna Bass became the interim mayor. We had her for 3 weeks of mayor, and I tried to pimp the shit out of that moment because I know she was an ally to us. And I was like, what is going on? What's up with that $7.2 million? We saw how y'all did Mosswood. We saw how Sheng Tao and her people did Mosswood. We saw how Sheng Tao and her people did to MLK. Nikki, what you gonna do about East 12th? And that was her district right there. Funktown's her district. And so we got her to respond in writing, and she basically said the city is going to purchase the extended stay. The city is going to connect everyone with services, and they're going to purchase the extended stay America in Emeryville, and let people live there. It's 150 rooms. They're going to let people live there for a year, and then transition that into a permanent residence. So extended but she said, but they haven't purchased it yet. So when we find the time, when the city's homeless department and administration has a timeline, they will contact you. And she said, and because you're in contact with the folks there, can you provide us with a list and demographics of the people there so that the city can better serve them? So we did that. We gave them a list of 150 people, and not only gave them the demographics, the age, the ethnicity and culture, emergency contact numbers, yada. We gave them all the services they needed. We gave them all the goals they had for life, because we want to be like, this is how you should do it. If you were really taking intake for these people, this is how you should do it, not how you do nothing. So we turned it into them, and then that was like 2 weeks ago. And then last week, one of the nonprofits contracted with the city, Operation Dignity, which everyone on the streets called Operation Undignified because of how they treat unhoused people, showed up and started walking around being like, do you want housing? Because you're going to get bulldozed in 2 weeks. Remember, we have no timeline yet. You're going to get bulldozed in 2 weeks. Do you want housing? Here, sign up. and they got a handful of people. And two of the people's names they got, I know those folks personally. Neither of them live on East 12th, and one of them has a house, like an actual house, like he's housed. And he's like, I got on the housing list, and I'm just like, wow. And so I contacted the city. I'm like, why are you guys not using the list that you asked me for? And how do you have people who don't live on East 12th on that list? And so I haven't heard nothing back yet.
Wow.
And I was like, and can you give us that timeline that Nikki was talking about before she left? And so the new interim mayor, Kevin Jenkins, who is East Oakland, District 6, just a hop, skip, and a jump from where we are right now. He's the new interim mayor. He ain't responding to anything I'm asking. The homeless administration ain't responding. So we're like bracing ourselves. Because knowing what they did with Mosswood and knowing what they did with MLK, we're like, you gonna do them dirty too, huh? Even though we got you on paper.
What's on paper?
That the city's gonna buy extended stay America and move everybody.
And what's the holdup?
That part. Where's the 7.2 million?
Right. So when's the hearing? That's what we would.
We're not getting any answers. And now everybody on East 12th is freaking out. Like for the past couple months, because I was doing Know Your Rights training and showing them all the paperwork so they have an understanding of what is attached to them, that they have an understanding. You got 7.2 million literally attached to you. You have a plan literally attached to you. So people were like, oh my God, finally. And now because Operation Diddy went there and said, we're going to bulldoze you in 2 weeks, people are freaking out.
Speechless.
Yeah, this is why we got this podcast, folks, because this needs to be out there in the public. Folks really do not believe what you hear these politicians say at all, because they're not telling the truth. They are pocketing that money. That money is disappearing. It's not going to end homelessness. I can tell you that much.
Now, we just need to keep fighting, though. We need to get more legal folk and officials on our side to get in where they need to get in, you know, because I'm tired of protesting and yelling at the door and all, you know, all that is good, but then what's the next step?
But I think as long as we have that Jerry Brown strong mayor thing, it doesn't matter who we get in there. I don't trust nobody in there anyway. Sorry, but with that strong mayor thing, unless we get a mayor, that's why Barbara Lee's running. Oh my God. You know, I don't even participate in this colonial government. I don't believe in any of this. I used to write Mumia Abu-Jamal as my president when I did vote. You know, if y'all don't know who Mumia Abu-Jamal is, look him up. But if Barbara Lee becomes mayor, we got a hope and a prayer to.
That
she's solid. She is solid. She's what the real Oakland needs.
I mean, it feel like something always happens once they get on the inside.
She's been on the inside. She's been our senator for how many years?
Senator, right.
And she's the one person who will constantly vote the way they should be voting. She'll be the one voice of like, I'm against this.
I haven't done much homework on her.
Look her up. If y'all don't know who Barbara Lee is, check her out. She has been the congresswoman for this district. My girl Latifah Simon from the Fillmore, who I've known since she was a teenager, is now the senator for us. Okay? And they tag teamed, right? Tifa tagged in, Barbara Lee tagged out, and now Barbara Lee wants to run for mayor for Oakland. Wow. We need Barbara Lee. And I don't even play these politics, but if I voted, it'd be on Barbara Lee.
So, what's stopping us like reaching out right now?
To and for?
About this money and see what type
Nothing.
of people, see what type of connection she has already. And,
Nothing.
She's already in there.
Yep.
That's what we need to do is
for sure.
Write the letter.
Give her a heads up.
Yep. Request the hearing.
Yep.
You know, even
have her have a plan before she even gets into office.
Right.
Yep.
Even see what's up with DA Price.
I love Pamela Price. I do. That's why they got rid of her, because she was doing what she was supposed to do, going after the crooked cops.
Right.
And refusing to try crimes of poverty as felonies. And they were like, oh, no. Like, just, she was doing the exact same thing that the white boy in San Francisco was doing. Chelsea Bolden. He was a DA in San Francisco. He lasted like a year before they kicked him out. He was doing the same thing. He was going after crooked cops and refusing to try crimes of poverty as felony. And they were like, oh, no. They got rid of him in like a year's time, 2 years' time. But Pamela Price, they went after her the day she took office.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And she's always been a supporter of the village. She would show up at evictions. When the city tried to bulldoze the encampment that I stayed in, she showed up to like, what do you need? What can I do? This is before she was running for office. So she's always been out there really trying to make change happen.
Some good heavy hitters right there.
For real. For real. And so then the last week of October of 2024, the city of Oakland got another $28 million specifically to prevent homelessness and to build permanent housing for the unhoused. So everyone else, all these other encampments that are not part of that 7.2, they shouldn't be evicted right now.
But see, the question is, who is the organization? Who are the organizations that the money is allocated to do the work?
Yeah, we got Operation Dignity. They're supposed to be doing outreach, and they manage the tough sheds and some of the hotels. We've got Boss, and you know, I know the founder of Boss. She's like my Shiro, Buna Chima. And the organization she created in the 70s is not the organization it is today. And Boss has so many programs, and there are some good programs in Boss, right?
Indeed.
Their homeless program is trash.
Wow.
Yes. And we've got the East Bay Housing Consortium. They manage some of these properties. They ain't doing people right either. And then you've got, trying to think who else. Abode. They're a nonprofit development company. I think what it really comes down to, for folks like Abode and the East Bay Housing Consortium, is that none of those folks have ever, one, experienced homelessness, have ever experienced poverty or addiction. And so they don't know how to relate to people. They've already got a bias embedded in their brains that these folks are criminal, that these folks are inherently bad, you know, and so they don't know how to deal with people. And because of that, people get evicted from their programs and their housing because they just don't know how to deal with people who are going through it. And then when you got programs like Boss or Bax, that's another one. Bax is just shady. They've been shady before this homeless industry blew up. And then Operation Dignity, they're hiring people on that buzzword. That new buzzword is a lived experience, right? So they can check off that box. Well, we're hiring people to staff our homeless programs who have lived experience, as they should. But that's the only, do you have lived experience? Check the box, you're hired. They're not asking like, so what have you done to heal from that? What do you need? Because we're going to put you in a highly triggering environment. What kind of support? There's no support for the staff who are now being placed to manage, to run these highly triggering environments. There's no question being asked, do you still engage in some of your past lived activities?
Big.
Do you still pimp women?
Right.
Do you still sell drugs? None of these interventions are letting people in who aren't addicts. There's one intervention, the Lake Merritt Lodge. There was a woman who got hired there to run programming there. That was her entire job, run programs. So she tried to bring some art, and she had resistance. They hired her because they could check off the box. So all of these interventions are supposed to have in-house services and programming. I'm telling you, none of them do. None of them do. People sit in their rooms all day.
Wow. Left to themselves.
People sit in and they have curfews.
It's the worst.
They have rules, and they have no programs, even though they're supposed to, based on the grants they're getting from the city. And so we had somebody actually come and tell us the truth. And she was hired to run the programs at the Lake Merritt Lodge. And she said she had so much resistance trying to bring programs there. And that was her job. That was literally her job description. And when she did get programs there, it was like art programs, you know, stuff like that, you know. And she said maybe 2 or 3 people came. And then she brought Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. And the first week they were there, 40 people came.
That's what's up.
And then the second week they were there, 50 people came.
Let's go.
And the third week, she got fired. This is where your money's going, folks. Yep.
The old slip the rug from under.
Right
When you're
right?
comfortable. Yeah.
Man.
Wow.
Yeah, the whole situation's all bad. It's all bad. Have you ever been in any of the interventions? Did you ever stay at a shelter or dealt with any of these nonprofits or these outreach workers like Operation Dignity?
I've never stayed at those shelters, but I've definitely witnessed their methods and their operation, and I've been with a couple of community members that where they came in. Project Dignity came in with the truck, with the cops. So the brother over there by the lake, he used to build his fortress and have kind of a store. He would get different things and have it out there to sell. Because he was displaced. Something happened with his housing. I forget. But he had his whole house out there. I mean, his kitchen, he just built. And yeah, they took it all. You know what I mean? And in the worst way. Just like, man, I don't know why I want to say like Demolition Man, but it was just like, or Judge Dredd, I think it is. You know, just like the law is here. Could care less about you or anything you got going on. Today, tomorrow, the work, your clothes, everything done. So, yeah, I wonder how they got the name Project Dignity.
Their mission states that they're supposed to provide, excuse me, services to homeless vets.
Wow, because
that's not what they're doing.
No, they not. Yeah, there's a lot of vets out there as well. That's some craziness too.
Man.
How are they fighting for the country and then
the
country just
forgets
kick
about
them
them.
to the curb?
Yeah. That goes back to Reagan. Reagan did so much damage of what we see in this that adds to the stereotypes of homelessness. And then what we're seeing the impacts of today. So he did 3 major things. One, he shut down all the public mental health facilities. And that's where our stereotype came that all homeless people are crazy. Because where did all those folks go? To the streets.
Wow, what a diabolical.
Yes. But that happened in the 80s, and that stereotype still lives today. And then the second thing he did was the war on drugs.
But let's.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the stereotype was created.
Yes. Manufactured.
Yeah, it was manufactured, just like viruses. We put that out, now everybody's getting a shot. So this constant programming, but it's really warfare.
Yes.
On its own people, our own people. Like
the disposable folks. The folks that this country deems disposable.
I mean, it's anybody who falls for it, though.
Yeah.
Even if they got money.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you would think of, well, now we know it's not a country, it's a
corporation.
Business, right?
Yeah.
Corporation. But you even then, you would think you would want your employees to be tip-top shape and feeling good.
Because happy employees make a good business, right? Yep.
We'd be inventing the dope stuff and
wanting the business to flourish.
Right.
Yeah, rather than trying to figure out how to get get your lick through the business.
Right.
Try to steal from the business.
Right.
Try to do the least amount of work as possible.
Exactly.
Because you ain't happy with your employer.
Or make your business off of them being sick.
Right. Well, that's a whole nother thing.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a whole nother thing.
I mean, to me, it's the same. I mean, health is the same, in the same category as housing. You know, housing, health. You know what I mean?
Basic
It's wellness.
needs
Yeah.
and rights, yeah. But it's all industry.
Right.
Housing is an industry. How much money can I make? Health is an industry. How much money can I make by keeping you sick?
Right.
Food is an industry. How much money can I make by not making sure you're eating real food? Let me cut corners.
But it's trippy because we found out the word mortgage is death pledge or something like that. It's like death pledge. Yeah, in the etymology.
Morgue.
Right?
Huh. Okay. Deep. Boom.
Right? So it's really just a box that you paying on to just stay in, and
wow.
you got a big box, small box, doesn't matter.
Wow. That's your morgue.
Until you're
dead.
Box.
Wow.
That's all the manip
That's
of
so deep.
extracting life
Yep.
out of a human. But they was talking about that in Matrix. You're just a battery, really, to them.
Right. How much can they juice off of you?
Right? Which is
Right.
interesting when we talk about our native family, which I'm part Choctaw and Blackfoot. And so I trip out, you know, about nothing solved. We still in the same story since the beginning, you know.
Even more so. Like, it's so much more obvious.
Yeah. And so we think about those are the lighter skin.
The $5.
We forget about
$5 Indians.
Right.
The ones who
We
paid.
forget,
Yeah.
Right. We forget about us when they used to call us Injuns. Indians, Injuns. No, they used to call us Injuns because of how we work, how long, and how much, how resilient. So it's just like all of this is really trippy.
It is. We were talking about this the other day, how words have power, but that's why they call it spells.
Exactly.
Spelling. You know,
Right.
we're casting spells every day. And if we don't understand, like you said, what's it called, etymology?
Etymology, right.
If we don't understand the root of the word, we're
Right.
casting spells with them.
And they got to keep doing it because
Yes. That's a ritual.
it's a ritual, but it drops off if they stop.
Which what happens when you stop your rituals.
Right.
Stuff drops off if you don't maintain it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Boom.
Deep.
Nice.
Deep. we got caught up in this matrix.
For real.
Well, let's. A lot of folks, I think, have not been or witnessed an actual eviction. So, and since this is where most of the city's money is going for homelessness, let's let folks see. This is an eviction that happened in 2017 at East 12th. This was the first eviction East 12th ever had. And what's very different in this situation is that the city let people keep their property, which is not what happens anymore. But DJ Igor, can we see that video?
Come on, James.
We know each other from, when people was living in houses, but now we're here. I was in the medical field. I've done biotechnology. I've worked for prisons, USDA, EB Mud, all types of places, but you never would think it, My boyfriend died on September 19th. His heart gave out on him. He took care of me for about 6 years, and he was only 40, and his heart stopped.
We have to move our stuff because they're not going to have nobody staying in this certain area right here no more. I don't know why. So they're trying to relocate us down the street by 23rd, like hoard us up like a bunch of cattle or something.
Nobody wants anybody homeless out there. Wherever you move, they want you gone. And I've lived in this city my whole life, you know what I mean? And I've never seen it like this, ever. You're basically one of the rich people out here, and they want to get rid of the poor, and that's what it is. If you have an income, you should be able to rent something. We can't rent nothing, nothing.
Some days it's just all you do is survive, and all your energy is going to surviving, and that's it. You know, like today is one of those survival days.
All right. So, like I said, that's not your typical eviction of what they're doing today. I want everyone to know that everybody you saw in that video and everyone who lived in that encampment was actually born and raised in Oakland. And Kimberly was the only person who was actually permanently housed. Everyone else is still unhoused. This video was taken in 2017. And the irony is that in 2019, after the city evicted those folks and moved them up to East 12th and 23rd Ave, January 2019, the city moved all those folks right back to that spot they just got evicted from. Right. And here's a little tidbit too. So we had been negotiating with the city because they had bulldozed our encampment. We created a clean, this is before I became unhoused. We had created a clean and sober encampment for folks who wanted to get off drugs over at Marcus Garvey Park in West Oakland, and the city bulldozed it. And they thought they were going to stop us, but that actually just blew us up even more and put us in a position where we were able to negotiate for land. And the piece of land that we ended up getting was not the land we wanted. Most of the people we were working with at that time were in West Oakland because West Oakland had the most unhoused people at that time. Homelessness hadn't really reached East Oakland like it has today. Right. And so we were trying to negotiate for land in West Oakland, and the city was the mayor's office, that's Libby Schaff, and her administration were like, nope, 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 nope. And so they said you can have East 12th and 23rd, and if you don't want it, you're not going to get anything. So we're like, we'll make it work with we're already working with folks there, even though the majority of the people we work with are in West Oakland. We are working with the folks on East 12th. So we'll take it. We negotiated a lease for $1 a year, right? And that eviction and 5 other evictions on that day happened while I was signing the lease with the city. And the city moved 6 encampments, including that one, to the land that we had just signed the lease on, and told every single encampment, which was kind of like not cool with each other. People had deep family histories where they were funking, or people were part of different crews or organizations that were not cool with each other, and told each different encampment, this is your land, start building houses. Knowing that we were negotiating, the same person I was sitting at the table with, signing the contract, was the same person who made the call to close all those encampments and put them on the land we had just signed a contract for. And we made the most of it, and made the most of it. And
that was with, who was that? Sir Kabbalat?
He showed up there eventually. Yeah.
I think I remember seeing those structures there.
Yeah. Oh no, he had one structure there. We used it as a storage area that somebody actually ended up living in because they didn't want to be in a tent. We're like, you could use it too, but we also gonna keep our stuff in here too, so you could be security. But yeah, that's when we first met that cat. But yeah.
Word up.
Crazy
word up.
stuff.
You know, it's interesting that it's hard for the city to have compassion for their own members. You know, like each mayor, you know, should know how to manage. You know, like find a land. You know that land, Wood Street. That's a lot of land. That's really easy to just boom, boom, boom. Partition it off, do it right.
And folks kind of already did that. So, you know, when Wood Street started, it was started maybe in 2014. And by the time I started going over there, they were so organized and they had a vision and they were so united. And we started working with them, and they started getting some political power and started meeting regularly with the mayor and had this whole vision of what they wanted to do. And one of the ways the city disrupted communities street side that were organizing themselves or trying to like do better for themselves is they would shut down encampments and tell those encampments to go to those places. And what would happen is the folks would come and they wouldn't respect what was already established. And so the Wood Street, the Wood Street that became famous with like 200 people, all those 200 people got there because the city physically told them to go there or physically moved them there. And it completely disrupted what the original core of Wood Street was doing and creating. And the city stopped meeting, the mayor stopped meeting with the leaders of Wood Street. And different pockets did kind of self-organize themselves. So there were different sections of Wood Street that were happening. But what's come out of that, because now that's been completely cleared out and interventions have been put there, that'll be another episode we can talk about what's happening inside these interventions. We spent last year collecting testimonies from folks, and it's all bad. But one of the kind of communities that came out of there that's still organizing is the Wood Street Commons. So they're still organizing. They have a plan. They actually have a plan for developing permanent housing here in Oakland, and I think that they're trying to make it happen. They found a architect who's a real solid person that I've been able to build with. No pun intended. And they're trying to push forward to create this vision that the piece of Wood Street called the Wood Street Commons wants to implement as a solution to homelessness. So I wish them well and hope that they make that happen.
Me as well.
Yep.
More power to them.
For real.
Yeah, I wonder about just, what's that one? There's an architecture firm. I think they're black owned even.
Dones, Alan Dones, that one in West Oakland?
Nope, I don't know that one. This is right in downtown. It's like Big Oakland.
Oh, I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. And I'm like, man, all the architecture firms need to come together to
For real.
boom, boom, bang.
For real. And from what I've learned from speaking to Mr. Dones, so Mr. Dones is from the Lower Bottoms, right? And he now has a black construction and development company.
Excellent.
And he got the contract to build like an African black, inspired multi-use development at West Oakland BART. And the kinds of what I've heard him speak on is, the kinds of barriers and obstacles and red tape the city has given him as somebody who's from Oakland, who's a black man who's trying to build for Oakland, is like uncomparable to the open door policy the city's given to white developers who aren't from here. So what you're saying is right on the dot. All these black developers need to come together because, coalition, powers and numbers, push together an agenda and plan. That's real.
Wow.
That's real.
So, just a little bit, do you know any more about this project? You said it's an African what?
The West Oakland BART station, I think it's called the Mandela Station is what it's going to be called.
Oh, okay.
I think so,
okay.
yeah.
I see.
So, it hasn't happened yet, even though he got the approval at least a couple of years ago.
Interesting.
But we've seen people, developers come into the town and get approval, and then boop, their condo's up in less than a year. Wow. Right. So it took them several years to actually get approved, and yeah. And speaking of that, Elaine Brown, who was a former Black Panther and the last chair of the Black Panther, she liberated land. She hoorayed on some land in West Oakland on 7th Avenue and started building gardens for folks who were coming out of prison to come and do gardening and whatnot. And then she eventually got to a place where she was able to get a project, an affordable housing project developed, and it's called the Panther Apartments. And it's 72 units. I think the most anybody, and I could be wrong, but it's around this range. We should have some of our people here at one of our podcasts to talk about it. Shout out to Misty Cross. She's there. She's one of the original Moms for Housing, and she could talk about that too. She 72 units, the most anyone, and it's fully furnished. She fully furnished the apartments.
Whoa.
The bottom floor are all Black-owned businesses, including a Black tech business and coding business, a Black-owned gym, a restaurant, and there's one other one I can't remember. The most anyone's going to pay is like $400 and something per month, right? So they opened up, I think in the fall, they opened up applications, right, for these 72 units. And the first day, I think like 2,000 people applied. And I was asking Misty, she's the project manager of that, right? I was like, I wonder how many people applied for a condo when they opened up. Was it 2,000 people? No, because they're all empty. Not 40% are empty. And she had so much problems with the city of Oakland to get that off the ground. And she was doing the fundraising on her own. She was going to the county. She was going to private donors and having a hard time getting it started. And she put the city to shame. Like, we need more of what she did. We need more Panther Apartments.
Straight up.
We don't need any more condos. Stop that. Or beer gardens.
That's right.
We need Panther Apartments, and we need businesses and counseling places and fitness places, you know?
We need also fun places. They took away the arcades, Malibu, and different
But they
places.
opened 21 and up arcades. Okay, so check it out. So Oakland School of the Arts. It's a high school on Telegraph and 18th, right? So they shut down. Let me take it even back further. Remember the oak tree on 15th?
Oh, I love the oak. Come on.
Okay, right? So they shut down the oak tree, and the same month, they opened a pizza parlor, and the entire second floor is an arcade. So I find out about this, you know, and I'm with my youth and her friends and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always got kids around me. I don't remember how long ago. The kids were maybe like 10 or 12 years old. So I find out there's an arcade upstairs. I'm calling all the moms. There's an arcade. They shut down the oak tree, but there's still an arcade, and there's pizza. Oh my God, and there's beer and wine, so we can like drink while the kids play, you know. And so we started showing up in mass. And when I say we, melanated folks start showing up in mass, they try to block us from coming. And saying it's a 21 and over spot all of a sudden. But they serve food. And the California law says if you serve food, it can't be 21 and over. Right? So that happened. And then at Oakland School of the Arts on Telegraph and 18th, there's a high school. Surrounding it, where, what's it called? Rudy's Can't Fail? Is that the name of that cafe, that diner that used to be there?
Cafe, yeah.
So they shut down. And then the school's still there. And then this business opens up called Emporium, right underneath the high school, right? It's a 21 and over arcade. Right? And then you got Plank, which is all ages up until 9 o'clock. Like, our kids need stuff to do. Like, our kids, and now they want to bring a Dave and Buster's to Jack London. That's 21 and over. Like, can our kids get an arcade?
What? That's crazy.
Can our kids get an arcade? Something.
And I wonder if that's 21. Remember that? I don't know, not remember, but there's a new spot on Bay Street called Tipsy.
I haven't heard of that.
That's a miniature golf, but it's a beer garden.
Tipsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have no kids in there.
No.
Damn. Priorities.
Yeah. So, but it just needs to lighten up, you know, and pay attention to being the juice, you know, for our youngsters, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of that helps the city pH balance, you know, the stress, you know, keeps the stress low, you know, because that's, you know, that's why we call it an outlet.
Huh.
Plug in and allow the whole universe inside you, as they say. Well, if that's the case, well, we need a bunch of different things to do.
Hella.
You know?
I remember this one time I was working with Tony Coleman, rest in peace. Elder Freeman, rest in peace. Wilson Riles, who's still here. And this was in the early 2000s. We had approached city council because they were like sideshows, still like a thing, right? Still in the So we had approached city council and said, well, you know, most of the time the Coliseum parking lot is not being used. Why don't we create a space where the sideshows can do their thing there? Because NASCAR, like if folks don't know, NASCAR was a bunch of white kids down south who were racing their cars, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? But we got, I don't know if any people got skills at the sideshows, like skills. I can't do that. I cannot control a car like that. And we were saying, why don't we let them go to the Coliseum parking lot, and then we'll add stuff like basketball, because remember Midnight Basketball?
Straight up.
Right? And we can have like college recruitment there. And we can have food there. And we can have fashion show because, you know, folks in Oakland got, you know, over and over. We laid it all out. We could do it there. We got laughed at. They said, no, are you kidding? No, we're serious. Because you're not going to end these sideshows.
Yeah.
But you can support the young people who clearly need something to do, which is why they're doing the sideshows.
Definitely. Heart, courage, discipline, skill.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need our own place, though. I wouldn't do it.
With the city?
Nah. We just need our own land.
That
It'll be our own movement.
For real.
You know, because actually,
For real.
I talked to someone about this. It's called auto sports. Because, so, shout out to Babu Stadi. He actually still has a shop and still has old school cars they used to race.
Nice.
He used to be a racer, yeah.
Nice.
And I talked to him about it, and, you know, people need motivation. You know, people really need to be inspired to think big, because so much has been taken, so much has been destroyed. People have passed away. People have, you know, gone crazy on whatever substances or alcohol and everything. So the juice is needing to be revived. I call it like a defibrillation type technique. But we all here. That's why the young folk, and I'm still young. I'm 43. I'm still young, and I represent. I'm not a baby, but I am young. Because I mean, if I'm a baby, then when is the life happen? You know what I mean? Because see, I think, you know, man, it's all psychology. Like, just a little side, but relevant. A lot of people still that see me grow up in Oakland, like, oh, it's Little Waikwe in their mind. So they haven't really grown me up to the things that I do in their world.
Right.
And so they operating in a way that's like not conducive to
who you are,
who I am,
who you've grown up to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but however, I'm the same person, you know, I do have the same childlike, you know, silliness and playfulness and things. And it's just like, we still need to have those outlets.
Yeah.
You know, and we never like grow up like, you know, we still love to have fun the same way. We might have other responsibilities. But, so bringing it back. So Bible Study has all these pictures of, you know, greats that have been doing it. And he still has the juice. And all we need to do is it with our Marshawn Lynch's and Steph's and even like the Kev Choices and all our artists, Fab and
Dwayne Wiggins.
you know what I'm saying? The Tonys and things.
Yes.
Raphael will come down
Yes.
and represent and just write the plans, the schematics, the what it looks like and all this that you just said, because I was in the performances, have some halftime shows just like the universities, all that's what we do. And really make it a big movement, awards, the whole thing, because Asians have their thing too. So now we're going into automobile building. And it's endless.
Yes.
So we just need to engage more and really just go all out, strategize.
Yep.
Now, which is the same with the city, like, which goes into like reparations and a lot of things that have a lot of unfulfilled promises. That we spending a lot of time on that, which we could be spending strategizing with our own people that do support us and that we love.
Yep.
Like we keep thinking that something's supposed to work for us,
but it ain't.
Nah.
Right.
When are we going?
Yeah, I agree.
Wrap our heads.
I agree. I've never engaged, like I said, I don't vote because I think it's a joke. I really do. I think it's just a game that they're playing. And I understand that there's like a real like deep history with people getting the right to vote here and whatnot, but it's just a game.
But wait, right to vote, like, for what?
The lesser of two evils.
Yeah. We all fighting to get educated to what?
Yep.
Fighting to get housing for what?
Yep. And I've always been about self-determination. You know me. I've always been about self-determination and do for self. And I've always funded my own social justice. I had a private school here in Oakland that was tuition free. My Lumpias, I'm the Lumpia lady. The Lumpias funded that. The Lumpias funded the private school. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and then it was doing this homeless work that I first ever engaged with, like the colonial government, because unhoused people wanted me to. They're like, we need you to do this. They see that we're like good people, that we're human. And as an advocate, I'm like, all right. The only benefit that came from that and comes from me still doing that, one, now I feel a responsibility. I'm in it too deep. So I can't just turn away. I got to do stuff like tell the truth about what's happening, right? So I have to stay engaged so I know what they're doing so I can tell people what they're doing. But the one, I'd say, really good thing that came out of me engaging with the city and trying to advocate for folks was having people realize this is not going to work. They will never take care of us. We got to figure it out for ourselves, period. And what I've told folks as they've come up, like, well, I want to be a developer, look for private funding. Do not try to get funding from them. Do not try to work with them. Figure your own path. Like you said, there's Marshawn Lynch's out there. There's so much wealth in Oakland that we should be tapping into.
Extreme.
And that is the route.
Yep.
That is. DJ Igor, how we looking on time?
We got about 15 minutes.
All right. Anything else you want to say before we get into a video of some of the folks here on the streets?
So they say am I getting this right? Home is where the heart is. Is that right?
Home is where the heart is, yep.
Well, it's really love is where the heart is. Because if we're not showing love, if we're not learning how to have love for humanity again, we're doomed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we got to bring it back to the root.
Yep.
It's interesting. I don't understand why they say neighbors. Because isn't that... So we speak in English. I'm not English. I'm still breaking down the word. I'm still confused about a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like neighbor.
Does that mean no?
It means no.
Dang. Casting spells.
Here we go again. all this time.
Wow.
Good
I
morning, neighbor.
never tripped on that.
We just
Or they say hello,
hello, just hexing
right?
as we go.
Wow.
Smile with a smile.
Wow.
Confusing. Confusing our own self, our own spirit, and the person, and so, and the other being or spirit, and see, because person is a legalese name or term. Person is a thing. A business can be a person. You are a person. The business, though.
I got a tax number attached to me, is what you're saying.
When you were born, yeah.
Born,
birthed. That's a whole nother thing, but yeah, the love for oneself, which means it will be we are each other's mirror. So the house, the fact that they say homeless is literally saying is like you don't belong here on this planet. That's why they do the dumping and the classism and you
right.
But the trippy thing is we're so confused about life in general. Like you like having dogs as pets, but then you eat meat. You allow the slaughtering of these animals over here, but these are your pets, your little cute little thing. But then you got a noose around its neck, saying get over here and this and that, and but you want to act like you really care for them because you give them good food and clean up after them and get their shots and.
You reminded me when I was a kid. I was in the Philippines. I'm Filipina, and visiting my mom's family, that side of the family, and pets. They didn't have my mom's family. They're from the country. They don't have pets. They have animals they raised, and when they would have to slaughter the animals, even though I eat meat, there was a disconnect of where that meat came from, and because me and her were there. The whole family was going to come, and she hadn't been there in a long time. I had never been there. And so they had brought this baby pig, and we were there for several months, and I was in charge of the pig. So in my brain, it was my pet. And then they killed it, and it was like in every single day. I was like, I lost it. And the old Lolas, they were like, why is she in love with the pig? Because it's my pet. I don't know, that reminded me of that when we were talking about pets and stuff. There are some places in the world where there are no pets. The animals have a function, but you still take care of them. And then you don't go to like the market to get your meat. You raise your meat, and you know where that meat came from, and you use every single part. Like literally every single part of that pig was used in every single dish. So. Different strokes for different folks.
Different strokes indeed. But it's so interesting, though. I'm like, is it though? Because we are human beings, though, just around different planets. And are we learning about, or are we just going along with the traditions that we've come from? And there's so much that we've come from. We've come a long way and still have a way to go.
True.
Where are we going?
That's the question.
To me, the reason AI is going the way it's going and war is still happening is because of what we eating. That's a big part of it. We don't care about freaking the earth. We don't care about the creatures. Like we can't. It's a whole nother thing. But just going back to home, this is our home.
Yeah.
The people here are our family members.
Yes.
So we're like, you don't belong here. You're homeless. Hey, what's wrong with you? Wait, don't know my story.
Right.
You don't care about the conditions.
Right.
You're not helping. So you're not boycotting this over there. That's making it worse for us over here.
Yep. And it's one thing when people who are not from here tell other people like, oh, you don't belong here. Like they got this elitism, like I paid too much for you to exist here, even though these folks are from here. And then it hits a whole nother way when it's folks from here telling folks from here that you don't belong here no more. And there's this weird thing, like going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, how it's just this like setup, right? All of us are fighting to just make sure that we don't, it's like homelessness needs to exist as a way to make sure that that's not how you don't want to end up. So work really hard, do everything we tell you to do so you don't end up like that. You know, and then that weird mental game where like, if I can make sure, if I can point out that someone's doing worse than me, then I can feel a little better about myself. At least I'm doing better. At least I'm paying rent, even though I'm still treading water.
Right.
At least I'm not out on the streets. I must be doing something right. Just a weird situation.
That's what they say, trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Oh, yeah. That's what that is.
Real syndrome.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
And then a Stockholm syndrome is happening too, where a lot of folks are blaming unhoused people for being unhoused, but they're not, after everything we just talked about today, they're not blaming the people in power who've had 24 years, 25 years of policy making decisions and budget decisions that have created homelessness. They're not getting blamed. The people who have become the victims of those policies and budget decisions are getting blamed for their condition. And that's weird to me. That's some straight up, like, textbook victim blaming.
Right.
You literally are blaming the people who got hurt. Mm-hmm. But you're not blaming the people who put them there. That don't make no sense.
It's easy to do. Easy to do.
That's hella easy to do.
Ain't had no balls. ain't about to talk to the right people and corral other people and put their name out there. You know, right on.
All right.
And so yeah, it's like, so I'm gonna bring it back though.
Okay.
Home is where the heart is. We just gotta make Earth or our home, our Oakland, our home. The Bay is our home. You know, these grounds of our ancestors is our home, and make it known. Like, yo, nudge who we need to nudge. You know. And here's the other thing. Remember, if that house or whatever gets burned, blessings to those that got affected in the fires and things.
Yep.
But like, you gotta go back to the earth. So my message to y'all is get back to learning how to live off the grid with the elements. Take your cold showers, because it's actually cold without the sun. Get back into the earth, because since we've been domesticated, the skin is soft and you know, can't really go through nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get the smart, get the survival guys, get on that university YouTube, and get to work and get to training. Get some working out in. Change your diet to a live it. Change
Spell
your
work
diet
again.
to a live it.
Spell work.
Because, yeah, if you're not eating right, you're not going to be able to have that energy you need to get through.
True that. All right, folks. Well, we're done for the day. We're going to leave it out with a testimony from Sister Victoria. She is from the 80s over by East 14th and unhouses, and she's got, we just want to share, she's from the 80s and she is unhoused in the 80s. And so living on the streets where she was born and raised. And so we wanted to share some of her thoughts and about her experiences out here. This need to be live, Word on the Curb, here on E14 between on and 84th. And this is Sister Virginia, and she lives here in this neighborhood.
Yes.
And Virginia, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you're
Well,
dealing with homelessness?
I've been homeless for some time now, for about 3 years, due to the increase in the rent. I get Social Security of $832. Where can you live at for $832? Nowhere. I have went to all the programs, the 211, Roots, down at 16th Street, 559 16th Street. These people say they help, and they don't help. These people have no help for you because of the cost of living is so high.
Did it used to be like this here in Oakland?
No.
And you're from Oakland, right?
I'm from Oakland, been here all my life. All my life. I have seen people die out here from being sick, nowhere to go, living in the cold. This is cold out here. People just getting pneumonia. They don't have nowhere for us to go. They need to provide better shelter. Some people have so much illness, they can't live in shelters. They can't live in facilities and share a room because they either on breathing machines or in wheelchairs. They need to be provided. There's some very, very sick people out here. And these people need help. That's why this area is the way it is, because they are not helping nobody. They need help. Living in a tent is like living outside. We don't have no stoves to cook us some good food on in the morning. This is about our health now. You can't, it's just nothing to do. It's just nothing. It's nothing to do. It's just nothing. It's nothing to do.
What do you think of what they're trying to do today of evicting people out of their
They
tents?
shouldn't do that.
How come?
They should.
What do you think they should do instead?
They should let them give them something to better the tent, give them better tents to live in. Give them better tents.
How about building some permanent housing?
But that's from building. They got Pakistan, they got Walmart that's empty. Provide them with some better stuff, better equipment to live with.
That's right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.